Every day, businesses acquire other businesses. One of the things that very few businesses who are in the acquisition game do well is marketing. How do you take a business that you've brought underneath your business, retain its identity, retain its value in the marketplace, and promote it so that it grows, so that your investment appreciates? This is something that many specialists, I think, struggle with a lot, and something that I often consult on. When companies come in, they've acquired numerous brands, they've acquired numerous businesses. How do we get that message out into the world without muddying the waters, without making it confusing, make it clear to people both internally and externally, this is who we are now and this is what we are providing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a very simple process that I have that's a kind of a playbook with phases for building and rebuilding brands after acquisition. It's something that I think is a very valuable skill to acquire. So if you are in marketing, I would say listen close. If you can nail this and you can offer this to businesses, you will definitely have a ready market. So let's go ahead and go into the actual playbook that I have here in this Google Doc. And I've kept it very simple, so it's not glitzed and glammed. It's just easy to kind of tap into and replicate. So essentially what I have defined is that the project goal for this project, so let's say a parent company has acquired another company, the project goal is to create a repeatable process using action-oriented playbooks and a standardized protocol for growth-oriented marketing efforts. Many times, businesses that acquire other businesses have done the valuation, have understood what their market dynamic is, and they have additional ideas how this company could grow. And if they have those additional ideas are often going to include new marketing efforts. So it is very important that you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, right? You don't lose the old in interest of the new, that you keep the good, leave the bad, that you kind of begin to build the business in a strategic and meaningful way that does add value to it. And that requires some initial analysis. So here's what I would suggest if you ever get put into the situation as a marketer, or if you are in the situation as a business owner looking to expand your impact in this way. What I'd suggest is that you need to think about three fronts. You got to think about the brand that you're acquiring. You got to think about its digital presence. And then you have to think about the culture within that organization. So if you have bought a smaller brand, if you have bought a bigger brand, regardless of what size the company is, all three of these elements are intact and have to be evaluated because they will factor into what will be most effective in terms of growth and in terms of marketing and messaging and all of that. The first phase needs to basically be you evaluate existing brand against growth goals. Is the current brand capable of moving the business in the direction that you want to move it? Is it capable of selling what you want it to sell? Is it capable of selling at the level you want it to sell? All of that. That evaluation has to happen. And then you need to do a digital presence evaluation. Some of this definitely happened during the actual acquisition, like from a business perspective, but there needs to be a deep dive into all the digital properties that are owned, all of the digital platforms that are present, all of that needs to be kind of covered, understand how they're currently messaging on those platforms, because you're going to obviously have to do some change management. And then the culture. So who is involved? Who's involved at marketing at this company? Who is involved in messaging? Who actually has the power versus who says they have the power? Do all of that kind of analysis. And two, just how digital is the culture? How capable are they going to be of creating content, of doing the things that they need to do in order to get the messaging out, in order to grow in the way that you're telling them they have to? Phase objectives. So the objectives of that phase, you finalize a brand plan. You understand, okay, are there changes that have to happen? What are those changes? What is the core story of this brand now? Messaging, presence, audience, all the key components of a good content marketing strategy. Those really need to be fleshed out and decided on. And again, maybe not much will change, but maybe a lot will change. And that, you won't know until you look. So you got to have that evaluation happen. And then digital presence. So what is the plan? Who's managing things? Who owns things? Who owns process, strategy, tactics, all of it. And making sure that there is a digital property plan and an initial content run. So what are we going to do first, right? What are we going to create? Press releases and content and blogs and SEO and social media and all the things that it requires to have a well-oiled marketing machine. How are we ensuring that those things are going to happen? Are they going to continue if they've already been happening, or are they going to happen if they haven't ever happened at all? And then for culture, what is the collaboration plan for digital growth? So one of the things that I think is often underestimated The people that are dealt with during the M&A transaction may even be leaving. Honestly, sometimes that happens, right? You buy a business, the owner leaves. There are a variety of scenarios that could occur during this kind of situation. And so it's important that there is a very proactive process around enlisting buy-in. You want people to be excited about what just happened, and there needs to be a sense in which digital is imperative now. Right? I mean, if you have set forth growth goals for a business that you've acquired, or you're in this conversation at all, like it will have to be digital. There will have to be a component of it that is digital. People will have to adopt new technology. People will have to get more efficient. They'll have to get more effective. Most of that hinges on technology. So all of these things need to be well communicated to the people who are involved, and there needs to be a plan. How are we training? How are we upskilling? How are we raising up? How are we building out departments? How are we bringing ownership into AI and process and operations and all the areas that ultimately technology is going to touch and technology is going to support growth? So that's super important. Then we go into phase 2. So I would say in phase 2, you're really going deeper. So in the brand, you're going deeper into a brand playbook. What is the audience? What is, a management? What is the actual marketing strategy? How are we going to market? How are we farming? How are we finding new leads? How are we managing leads? How are we, kind of going through and building out all of those best practice kind of inbound funnels and inbound processes and infrastructures and technology and all of that, email marketing and all the things. And then outbound, right? Like what does the BD look like? What does the BD department look like? Are they stewarding the brand? Are they repping the new brand? How much are they looped into that process of building out differentiators and communicating those into the market? Things like that. So making sure that this gets more solid, there's more life to it, there's more structure around it, and we're understanding now how we're going to move into execution, how we're moving some of this out into the real world. And then for digital presence, it's going into continuation of auditing all the digital platforms, including all of the marketing technology, all of the operational technology, understanding how all those things are or aren't working together. Again, some of this is done during due diligence. Some people who are acquiring businesses go deep in that phase, and so a lot of this is addressed, but it's just important that anybody who's coming in to build a marketing strategy for a business, or to oversee a marketing strategy, or to advise on a marketing strategy for a business that has been acquired, is aware of all of these things. So this may not be doing it from scratch. It may just be getting it from people who have done it, but either way, it's got to be done. There's got to be clear understanding of all of this so that you can move forward into something that is actually effective. And then with culture. So, anytime when I go into consulting engagements and things like that, you're starting at the top because you want to get the people who have the most decision-making power. They have to be on the same page. There has to be leadership alignment about what our goals are, what markets we're going into, how we're advancing the mission, all of that. But you also have to build relationships with the people who are actually going to do the work, right? So you got to get into the marketing department, the sales department, the BD department, the growth people, all of that, because those people are going to be the executors. And so it's really important that you start to build relationships at some point, not in the not too prolonged future state where you've got second tier relationships, right? You're getting into the marketing directors and coordinators and SEOs and webmasters and BD team and all of that I said before. So I think that's important to understand who those stakeholders are and then begin to build relationships with them, because they need to be part of the content plan. They need to be part of the growth plan. They need to be part of the marketing strategy. And the earlier you can bring them into that, the more ownership they will feel they have. Including people goes a really long way. All right, and then the phase objectives of that are obviously we've got a playbook. We understand how we're rolling this out. We understand how we're going to market. We are going to do so effectively, and here's how it's going to be effective, and we've got a really solid plan for that. And then we've got an inbound and outbound marketing plan for digital marketing on all the platforms where we need to be, maybe social media, maybe email, maybe whatever. And then we've extended the digital growth involvement further into the business so that there's more and more understanding of we're pushing this, we're advancing the mission, we're all on the same page. And that in and of itself is quite a challenge when it comes to M&A and the whole dynamics around being acquired. So it's something that you can absolutely support, and leadership will definitely thank you for doing it. All right, and then in phase 3, we've got the brand implementation. So now just comes the doing, right? So the rewrites, the reworks, the redesigns, creating hype, doing a relaunch, however you're going to market with it, making that all actually happen in the real world. And then the same on the digital side where there's an implementation of project or process management. So one of the things that often happens when a business is acquired is obviously they gain access to more capital resources, things that can help them achieve their objectives, right? That's what, an acquiring company wants to do, right? Is for them to achieve their objectives and grow so that they appreciate and value. So creating project and process management tools standardized perhaps at a higher level or otherwise, and having to bolt in, right, to those, having to adapt to those. There's some change management that has to happen there, but it can also obviously free up a lot of bandwidth once there is competence over some of those tech tools. So the project management to implement and measure all digital marketing activities so that there's clarity from at every level of leadership on what we're achieving and how. And then crafting the measurability into the continuous approach to digital culture reinforcement. How are we huddling up around the idea of AI? How are we constantly advancing new things and initiatives and being a culture of people that always have great ideas? And then having this as, having this as a clear understanding of like, what would this look like, right? What would success look like? It would look like a cohesive brand image and a story that's calibrated for the interest and ultimately the conversion of a well-defined audience. In digital, it would look like an intentionally structured digital process and measurable audience-specific digital marketing funnels. And for culture, it would look like a collaborative, engaged group of leaders and employees across the firm or across the business who are dedicated to growth on digital fronts. So that's pretty much how I would go in. I would definitely say that you need a month for each one of these phases. At minimum, depending on how big the company is, you may need quite a bit more than that. But you'll need some specialists involved. You'll need some experts involved. If you're the one doing the work, you still want to make sure that there's a sense of, who's on first, right? Who's doing what, and there's a clear delineation of that, who's being responsible for what, who's accountable to whom, and that the process goes as quickly as possible. So I thought that was just a helpful way to kind of say, like, now that, if you're a mature marketer, if you're a consultant, if you're in advisory, if you're in, M&A activity and you like to acquire businesses, if your business has acquired another business and you're in the marketing department, all of these scenarios, you could benefit from thinking through brand, digital presence, culture. How are you auditing, creating playbooks, and then implementing in a way that can scale? I'm Joy Ewell. I don't know if I said that. I'm the owner of Winsome Marketing. We provide consulting services like this, where we go in and we do these kind of projects with businesses to help them create streamlined processes that get the results that they want. I'm also the owner of Hire a Writer. We do SEO and all kinds of other specialized content production. And I wish you all the best with this.